how to gain leverage as a woman, even when you have limited resources, right? Or you come from humble beginnings. Like, how do you leverage anything? How do you gain leverage at all when it seems like you don't have any to begin with? Leverage is a word that we attribute to Nepo babies or people that were born into a family that is already well connected, people that were born into wealth. We typically think of those types of people as having leverage, right? Or the type of leverage that is most, I guess, like popular these days on TikTok and whatnot is pretty privilege, right? It's kind of glamorized as, okay, even if you weren't born into a wealthy family, there is still this cheat code that as long as you're pretty on the outside, as long as you are aesthetically pleasing, you can catch a rich man. You can move up through marriage, right? Because marriage is the quickest way to move up a social class or two, especially for women. It's more nuanced than that, we know. But so far, my point is that what I mostly see, the types of discussions that I mostly see when it comes to this whole how to social climb, how to, gain leverage and therefore more freedom in general, freedom of autonomy and agency as a woman in this society. Most of the conversations that I've seen so far on social media center around the looks conversation or the presentation and how to maximize your looks. That's been a popular way for certain creators to, I'm just going to say it, sell a dream to the legions of young girls out here in these social media streets, just trying to get a hint, trying to get some knowledge on how to improve their situation in life. So there is some truth to that conversation for sure. For example, if you're trying to network in higher circles or rub shoulders with members of the higher echelon of society, typically speaking, you don't want to be too gaudy. For instance, like today's makeup is a perfect example. I did this green makeup because for some reason I wanted to recreate Emily's look from Devil Wears Prada because, there's the whole press circuit going around about Devil Wears Prada 2. I never even liked Devil Wears Prada, so I'm not sure why I was inspired to do this makeup look. I watched one trailer for Devil Wears Prada 2. So of course, after that, the YouTube algorithm started recommending me just videos about Devil Wears Prada in general. I remember I did read the book series first before anyone even knew about it, before it was turned into a movie and a multi-million-dollar, cultural phenomenon. I was there and I read the original books, okay? And I quite enjoyed. I mean, like many things that start off kind of niche, it felt like a special little thing just for me, just my little corner of the world. I remember at the time, none of my peers had read it. It's by Sophie Kinsella, right? And I just felt like it was this cool little, niche book series. But then lo and behold, of course, when you introduce big names like Anne Hathaway and Emily Blunt, then it's going to blow up to become a phenomenon, which is great for them. But looking back, I don't know. I personally don't feel like that movie aged very well. I don't find any of the characters particularly aspirational or admirable. But again, it's probably just the fact that a lot of the themes of the first one did not age well. So I'm hoping maybe they're going to correct some of that and there's going to be a shift in tone for the second movie. There has to be, or else I don't think it would go over well with 2026 audiences. But yeah, that's where this eye look came from. What was I saying? Yeah, so this kind of eyeshadow, like these nails, would not fly if I'm trying to mingle with high network individuals and get taken seriously. Now, to some extent, nothing is a hard and fast rule, but definitely when it comes to sexually provocative dressing, right? There's nothing wrong with wearing something that shows off your silhouette or hugs your curves or something, but you definitely have to exercise a little bit of restraint when you're trying to navigate higher society, because especially if you're going to places like in Dubai, for example, if you go to certain events that are held at these 5-star hotels, they're going to straight up assume that you're a prostitute if you're dressed a certain way. And it's not to say that you're wrong or that you need to suppress your style, that you need to change your personality or anything, but it's just dress for the job that you want. Or as Shira says, dress for like the man or the type of lifestyle that you want first. And then later on, when you get a strong foothold, like when you manage to marry into a family with wealth, or you have already solidified your position in those circles, then you can start to loosen up a little bit and like dress more according to your own personal quirky taste. But yeah, so there's a lot of conversation about how to present yourself aesthetics wise in order to blend in, so to speak, to high society or to get people to take you more seriously, whatever, right? Like don't have crazy tacky nails like I do. Make it short housewife nails, French manicure, or just one color like red, beige, classic colors. But what I feel like I often don't hear a lot of people talk about is how to use language to gain more leverage in pretty much any situation, okay? You could be broke, you could be living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have any connections. Even if you are broke, even if your wardrobe is like you're barely just being able to make do with the basics that you find at the thrift store, or you only have a few outfits on rotation. Even if you're working on your look still, right? Let's say you still have to lose a little bit of weight, or you're not all the way there yet with your makeup skills and your grooming and all of that. I feel like there is one other tool, one very basic and very foundational tool in our toolbox as human beings in general, but particularly I feel like this works well with women, that is not paid enough attention, especially in social media. Because I guess like the visual stuff, it sells, right? It's really eye-catching. It's really easy to get eyeballs on your video when you show like 10 different old money looks that you can get for under $50 an outfit. I'm talking about the TikTok idea of old money aesthetic, not actual what actual people that come from old money wear. That kind of stuff is much more likely to perform well on social media than the topic that I'm going to talk about in this video. But I feel like we are doing ourselves a huge disservice glossing over this very, very powerful thing that every single woman can use to her advantage. And you can use this as leverage, regardless of if you have very little, even if you're starting with very little, materially speaking and connections wise. And that is language. Okay, I took notes. Your ability to speak well in public situations, your ability to read the room and make small talk with people, all of that stuff is important. And I know that there's some videos out there from like femininity influencers or whatever that talk about feminine voice technique, right? Like speak softer, speak slower. So I will admit that is actually a great tip. If you don't know where to start, the first step that any woman can take is to slow down her speech, right? Not to the point where it's like exaggerated and obvious, but slow down, take a deep breath, and deliberately pacing yourself. I think that's a good term. Pacing yourself when you're talking, not coming across as this frenzied, chihuahua, but like pacing yourself, speaking slowly, taking your time. That's a way to show people that you are not afraid to take up space. In fact, you deserve to take up space because, you're here, and if they want to hear what you have to say, then they're going to wait patiently until you get through your entire piece that you want to say, right? And you're going to do it at your pace. You're not going to insert yourself into conversations where you haven't been invited, of course. But if you've been invited to a conversation, or if somebody at a mixer or an event or a dinner party pointedly asks you about your opinion or whatnot on whatever current event, you should take it as an opportunity to demonstrate your confidence and your control of the situation and of yourself through your speech, right? And becoming more eloquent, that takes practice. But like I said, the first step that any woman can take is to be mindful of the speed and the rhythm, okay? Like the cadence at which you're speaking. The second thing that you have to do, and again, all of this requires practice, okay? It is not a quick fix. It's not a band-aid that you can slap on. It's another reason why I think the aesthetics focused content is so much more, palatable and apt to go viral than this topic, because even though the aesthetics thing is actually not easy either, especially it depends on the woman, but if you have a long way to go, for example, like if you're very overweight or you just need a whole makeover, that itself is also going to take time, right? That takes time and resources and effort, like anything else in your level up journey. But I feel like with the aesthetics, the pretty privilege aspect, it's easier to make deceptive or seductive content around that. That's been a popular way for certain creators to, I'm just going to say it, sell a dream to the legions of young girls out here in these social media streets, just trying to get a hint, trying to get some knowledge on how to improve their situation in life, because people can just show you a get ready with me video. And like nowadays they cut it down to a 20-second TikTok to where it gives the impression that, okay, all I have to do is learn how to put on this makeup routine. I just have to buy these products like A, B, C, D, and then voila, I'm going to be able to transform myself into a Miami 10 or whatever terminology that they use. But when it comes to speech and how you use language, that takes a lot of practice. And not only does it take practice, it takes a lot of emotional regulation, especially the tactics that I'm about to go over with you today. So, this is a topic that has many, many different levels and is multifaceted. We're just going over the basics today. So I told you the first step, like ground zero, if you feel like you have no idea where to start, if you're not confident at all yet in your ability to hold court or hold your own in a conversation in a room full of high net worth individuals, slow down, right? That's the first step. Or like, don't talk much at all, because actually silence, being a woman of few words, what does that give you? It gives you an aura of mystique, which adds to what? Your leverage. Okay. So even if you're at the point where you feel like, okay, I can't even think about slowing down my speech or whatever, because I don't even have something significant to say, right? Which is not true. But if you are still in that kind of anxious or, insecure state where like you feel like you're a beginner, just speaking less, like saying a lot, but using as little words as possible, that works as well, especially as a woman. Okay.
First went into modeling, which happened by accident.
Well, how did that begin? And what age did that happen? Were you a young girl when that began?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So how did you get into doing this?
It works better for women than it does for men, right? Because the less you speak as a woman, and this also plays into our patriarchal society. I'm not saying that I agree that this is how women are perceived, but this is how our society is set up. So we might as well use it to our advantage, right? Women that don't speak a lot and that just like kind of sit there, as long as you look good, you're delivering on the visuals front as well, that's going to work in your favor, because people tend to like women, especially pretty women, beautiful women, beautiful presenting women, better if they don't speak. How many times have you heard somebody criticize or make a snarky remark about a model or an actress? Oh, I liked her better when she didn't speak. You may have even said it once or twice yourself, okay? And it's fine, I don't judge, but we're here to reflect and do better, right? So I know I definitely, maybe not said it out loud, but I definitely thought it once or twice when I heard a certain female celebrity speak that I never heard before. And like maybe I imagined her way of speaking to be different, based on her look. Maybe I imagined her to sound more sophisticated than she actually did in their interview. And then you have that snap judgment of, actually, you know what? She had more going for her when she didn't speak, right? Like what was the saying again? I liked her better when she didn't speak, or she should have just kept her mouth closed. She should have just let the face card do the talking. This is what people still think by and large, this day and age in this patriarchal society. So use it to your advantage, okay? If you feel that you're not quite there yet when it comes to your conversational skills, use it to your advantage. Let your face card do the speaking for you. But at some point, you're going to have to push yourself past that comfort level. So another basic tip, this is, again, just we're staying at beginner level here, but certain words, I would say, do not use certain words that typically cause people to put their guard up, or how do I want to put this? You want to avoid certain words that could potentially paint you as somebody like difficult or combative, right? And I understand that I might get pushback on this, but just hear me out, okay? I am not telling you to be a shrinking violet. I'm not saying to make yourself smaller because we live in a sexist society or a misogynistic society still. So you should just like pander to that ideal and mold yourself into what the rich misogynistic men of the world think. That way you'll be able to infiltrate those circles. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that a lot of people walking this earth are very, very much in their ego, and they're very reactive, emotionally speaking, okay? They don't have emotional control. So if you know that you are in safe company, you know that you are speaking to somebody that is highly intellectual and that does not react or judge people on emotion, then maybe you can let your guard down a little bit. But the vast majority of people, especially strangers, right? I'm not talking about when you're like gathered at the kitchen table with your bosom buddy, your best friend since third grade, or your relatives that you're super close to, like your sister or your cousin or whatever. That's, of course, that's the place where you get to be real, raw, unfiltered, and not walk on eggshells. I am talking about out there in society, okay? When you are trying to improve your lot in life, when you are trying to gain some form of leverage so that you can get that higher paying job that you know you deserve, but you just haven't been able to get your foot in the door because maybe you didn't go to an Ivy League school, right? Maybe you came from a working class or a middle class family that doesn't have a bunch of CEOs or connections that they can call on to give you, basically like hand you on a silver platter your first cushy intern job that then funnels you into a nice cushy upper middle class salary. Like maybe your starting point is further behind than some of your peers. That's totally fine. That's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm just saying that you have to adjust your strategy as necessary in order to catch up. Okay. So yeah, I'm not telling you to shrink yourself. And like, if you want to complain that, oh, well, I don't want to be fake, etc. Okay, well then you must not want a better life for yourself, right? I'm not saying this is how you should be in front of your friends or at the kitchen table when you're at home. I'm talking about when you are out there there at the social networking events, at the galas or whatever, when you're talking to somebody who is potentially standing between you and a bigger paycheck or a bigger opportunity, right? You do have to, in some ways, for lack of a better term, you do have to pander, okay, in order to get on their good side so that they can give you the opportunity that you're after. Public social life is a theater, by the way. It's all acting, all right? So that's one of the things that you kind of have to get over as you get older. Everyone is acting and everyone is BSing it out there. And oftentimes it comes down to who is the best BSer, who's able to be in control of their emotions long enough and holding the pose long enough to where they can eventually get what they want in the end. Like, who's able to play the long game, right? You want to be one of those people who is able to play the long game. And the way you do that, well, first of all, the way you do that is that you detach from people that are not in your close inner circle. Anyone that's not like a close relative or your best friend, someone that you would tell your deep dark secrets to, never forget that they are not your friends. You need to draw a line and consider them as squarely in the acquaintance category, right? And when it comes to acquaintances, sorry, not sorry, but I could really give a fuck if we're being honest with them or not, okay? You are only obligated to be civil to them, right? You're not going to do anything nefarious because you're a good citizen. You're not malicious, but you are not obligated to be honest. You're not obligated to keep it real, nothing, okay? Especially, like I said, if they stand between you and a paycheck or an opportunity, and if they're willing to do the social dance with you to help you get what you want, make no mistake, they're also trying to manipulate you. They're also trying to use you in some way to further their own agenda. So you use them right back. And I'm going to tell you how. So the first way that you do that, the way that is accessible to every single woman here, regardless of her circumstances and her resources at this moment, however little they might be, is through language, okay? So this is just my advice. You don't have to take it if you don't want to, but avoid words that stir up negative emotion or stir up defenses in a person. There are certain words that make people automatically put up a wall. I'm just going to throw out a few examples. Number one is why. Okay, when you ask someone directly, this is a huge sign of rookie networking skills, as far as I'm concerned. When somebody approaches an interaction with a new person as if it's an interview, where did you grow up? Why did you do this and that? Very pointed, direct questions. They don't mean anything bad by it. They're not being malicious or anything. Asking direct questions, I would say that, and like, again, I'm just using these terms because that's what's popular in the zeitgeist right now, and that's what seems to get the point through. So don't take everything too literally, but if you hang around upper echelon or higher net worth people long enough, you will notice that they never ask people direct questions. Why? Because it's invasive, okay? Because they themselves, if they're a high net worth individual, if they're somebody important, if they are a celebrity, think about it. How exasperated are they at having to deal with people trying to pry into their private life on a daily basis? That's why a lot of them, you know, they spend so much money on security and all this, and they have like publicists that have to review the questions list. If they're going to get interviewed on a talk show, they often have their publicist or somebody working for their assistant review the question list, and that person acts as a buffer between the celebrity and the TV show host to say, okay, this question is approved, this one is approved, that one is approved. She'll talk about this one, no, she's not going to talk about that. She's not going to talk about her divorce, right? So fake it till you make it, like embody your higher net worth self before you actually get there in the 3D. A very simple way to do that is to not do unto others as you would prefer to not be treated yourself. I feel like that came out wrong, but like, just think about if you were a celebrity, if you were a very high profile person, you have a family, you have a significant other, whoever, to protect. It's not just your privacy on the line, it's that of your entire family. How would you feel if you went to an event and somebody just came up to you, someone that you don't know from anywhere came up to you and started asking you, like, where did you go to school? I'm not talking about innocent questions like, what's your favorite color? Okay. But I'm talking about, you know, what do you do for work? I consider that to be, I'm sorry, but like, I mean, like, I don't take offense to it. This is the whole point. We're not taking anything personally, but I'm telling you how to navigate certain questions that people tend to ask. Yeah, like invasive questions that people tend to ask when they haven't had a certain level of home training that could be potentially, you know, triggering. How to navigate that is to, first of all, embody the type of person that you would want to speak with. So if you wouldn't want people to ask you invasive questions, then don't do the same thing to other people. Like, master the art of carrying a conversation and letting it flow naturally. You can mention certain things. If you want the conversation to take a certain turn, you can mention certain activities. Like, for example, if you've never been to, I don't know, F1 before, the Formula One races, and if you're at some event where you know that the people attending this event seem like they do those types of rich activities in their off time, if you know what I mean. It seems like the golfing, country club, F1 type of crowd. Instead of saying like, oh, do you go to F1? You might as well ask them, do you have a Ferrari, right? That's kind of gauche. It's kind of like invasive. Again, it makes people recoil. It makes them put their walls up, especially someone that actually is worth something. Because chances are they do have that and a bag of chips. If you're talking to someone with high net worth, they have a lot to lose. Naturally, they're not going to appreciate being questioned so directly, even if you're being innocuous about it. It's just not a good look. It makes people defensive. It makes them want to avoid you. And I know this firsthand because I've been on the other side of the interaction more times than not in my life. I'm not a high net worth individual by any stretch of the imagination, but there are certain things that, like being a foreigner in Japan, certain questions that I get very tired of. And I've gotten to the point where, I straight up just lie to people's faces sometimes with a smile, without any attitude, of course, or I completely just, circumvent their question and redirect the conversation. But I take note of what I don't appreciate. You did go to Cornell. Thank you. I did go to Cornell, but that's the thing. Like, yes, it's eye-catching on my resume, of course. I'm not going to act like it didn't help me to get certain jobs. Because if you look at, okay, not to get off on another tangent, but like if you look at my entire employment history, I was pretty much all over the place. I had no idea what I was doing when I first graduated university. And it was pretty much a series of, like, in my mind, lucky breaks. But looking back, definitely part of that was the privilege of graduating from an Ivy League, right? And the reason that I was able to go to the Ivy League in the first place is, of course, obviously, I got in somewhat on my own merit. I was the one that applied and got in, but also because I had a family that could afford to put me through an Ivy League education without having to take on the burden of student loans or anything like that, So, but that's a whole other story. But here in Japan, though, it's funny that you mentioned Cornell. Like, nobody knows anything about Cornell in Japan. If you talk about Ivy League colleges, the only name that people know is Harvard or Princeton, right? Nobody really recognizes the name Cornell. So in a way, it works out in my favor because I feel like I can, behind the scenes, when it comes to like the actual interview rooms that I walk into to interview for new opportunities, people in those positions, like the HR people interviewing me, they obviously know about Cornell, but in real life, I don't have to deal with that. So I kind of like that. But anyway, they still find ways to, like, they question me as if I'm some sort of exotic animal when they find out that I'm a foreigner. And then, like, especially if, depending on how Japanese I look that day, because if I was wearing this makeup, then definitely they're going to assume I'm a foreigner. But if I'm wearing a more Japanese style, then they assume I'm Japanese, and they're like so surprised when they find out I'm American. Or sometimes people think you like it or that you would appreciate it if they just ask you a bunch of questions about being American, or I don't know. I don't even know what they asked me, honestly. I haven't been to a social event in like months at this point, if you can't tell. 2026 is my hermit year. I'm only stepping out when I personally have been called or invited somewhere. So yeah, don't ask people questions, okay? Don't ask them where they went to school or what they did for a living. Like, you may think that you're being slick, but you're not being slick. Anything that ends with a hard question mark, avoid it, okay? There's ways to direct the conversation to that topic if you want to, if you get good enough at your conversational skills. And typically by that point, the funny thing is that by you not asking that many questions, that alone is going to get that person probably to let their guard down around you, especially if they're like a known high net worth individual or a celebrity or something. They're used to people trying to pry and invade their privacy. So if you just roll up like totally chill and talk to them like an equal, okay, and shoot the breeze with them, like, what do you think about that? Wasn't it crazy? We weren't expecting that guy to win the last race, were we? Going with the Formula One example, right? So like, if they let their guard down, they're going to naturally start talking about themselves and revealing information to you, because people love to talk about themselves, right? But if you ask questions, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. And this is not one size fits all. I'm not saying, like, you have to calibrate depending on the person that you're interacting with. But for the most part, it's gauche. It's obvious, you're not being slick, and it's amateur, okay? It's not a good look, and it gives low class. I'm sorry to say, again, I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just using these terms so that it's easier to understand. But if we're going to talk low class and high class, yeah, asking questions, interviewing someone at what's supposed to be a social event, like a casual event, that's not the vibe. That's not what we want to give off, okay? We want to be easy breezy, cool, good conversationalist. I'm giving you your space. You can tell me as much or as little as you want about yourself. So avoid asking the question why. And then I wrote down some things that you can say instead. If you're in a situation or a conversation where you feel like the conversation is flowing and you guys kind of caught a wave together and you really want to grab the opportunity to get some more information, instead of asking them why directly. Again, I'm sorry, I'm gonna probably repeat myself 1,000 times in this video, but I really want to stress the important points of like how powerful language is to shape our perception of things. Language is everything, honestly. There was a quote, I should have wrote it down because I forgot it already, but it's something like nothing is real unless you voice it or something like that. Language shapes our reality. So avoid asking a question, avoid like inflecting your tone at the end of a sentence in a way that signifies a question mark at all costs, okay? Avoid it like the plague. Instead, you can say phrases such as, oh, help me understand XYZ. If they talk about like, I don't know, they invested in some stock and then it unexpectedly crashed on them, so then they lost like $3 million in the stock market or whatever. And if you feel like, wow, this is amazing. I've never heard, I've never met somebody that was so knowledgeable about stocks or had that much money in the market, and you feel like you don't want to waste this opportunity, by all means, continue the conversation, like get, super passionate, get super involved in the conversation, but don't ask why, okay? Just say, oh, well, help me understand what is the thought process behind doing da 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 da, right? And so you're kind of like, you're basically referring to their situation, but you're not asking them directly. You're kind of posing it as a hypothetical. They know what you're asking, but they're going to be inclined to engage in your conversation because they feel like their guard is down because you didn't corner them with a question. You just presented this hypothetical, like, yeah, I wonder why. That's another good one. You can say, I wonder why, or like, I wonder how you would set up a company in Dubai when you're actually based in the US. You get the gist, right? What is the thought process behind, or that's so interesting, etc. And like, okay, if you're not used to doing this, trust me, I am somebody that is a straight shooter. I don't like to beat around the bush. I like to cut to the chase. I like to speak the truth. I don't like to sugarcoat things, especially like hard truths that it's better that you learn it sooner than later, right? It's kind of like pulling off a band-aid. I don't like to coddle young girls or young women that way. If I know something that I spent like blood, sweat, and tears to learn a certain valuable lesson or a certain harsh truth about life, I'm just going to give it to you straight, right? But it's appropriate for me because I'm doing it like on my channel, through my social media, through my content. My purpose, my mission statement behind my content is to help women, right? So in that context, it's appropriate. Not at a dinner party, okay? Not at a gala or a charity function. No, people are there to chill. More than likely, if you're able to, sorry, I'm getting hot. If you are able to finagle your way into one of these high society events, which are usually exclusive, right? They're usually invite only. But if you happen to be able to become a +1 of someone or get a ticket somehow because the organizer, like you don't need to feel less than when you walk in that room. You belong in that room, but you have to act like it, is what I'm trying to say, okay? You need to blend in, be discreet. And that includes like more so than the appearance part, which everyone knows already. We don't need to beat that horse to death again. Everyone knows how to get your appearance together. You can go on Tumblr, TikTok. There's like endless media out there to help you get your appearance together for any type of event. Or you can even look at like the past pictures of the events that certain group threw. You can use that to give you inspiration on how to put your look together and your outfit and whatnot. But I feel like more people, or like more women in particular, should pay attention to the communication aspect, okay? Like the language mastery. Okay, so another word that you want to avoid, and again, some people might give me pushback on this, but don't use the word but. Okay. I can't think off the top of my head too many situations in, I guess, like a social networking event where this word would even come up, but I'm thinking more of like in a job interview. Even if you're replying in an email to someone. Okay, so that's another big one too. Written communication, also apply the same rules when you're communicating to someone in written form as well. First of all, speak in full sentences, capitalize the first letter of the word of the sentence, put a period at the end. Okay, that goes without saying. In an interview though, when they ask you something and you're like describing it, a lot of times the word but might come up in your mind, right? Like, oh, I did this, but I can't do that, or I made a mistake, or whatever scenario that they ask you to describe, like whatever conversation that you're having, try to avoid using the word but, because like I said, this is not about making yourself smaller or overly censoring yourself. It's about anticipating other people's inability to be emotionally mature and aware enough to not be affected by certain words, okay? A lot of people are very unconsciously and unknowingly driven by their emotions. And it's kind of like a minefield, right? You're stepping into a minefield. Some people are better than others, but you never know what you're getting with any one particular person, especially if it's like just an acquaintance level, right? Or even less than acquaintance level. If you're interviewing with someone for a job, chances are it's like your first, second time talking to them ever in life. You're not even talking to the real them. You both are putting up this like theatrical act of your corporate self, right? It's just a performance of your corporate personality that you want to show to them so that they'll hire you. It's a charade. It's theater. But yeah, God, this is hard to describe. I feel like I should have brought some real life examples. I might pull up like an email or two on my phone later to show you guys, to walk through like a real life example with you guys. But you'll know, like, okay, you need to trust your intuition, right? If you feel like, you know what, I'm going to pull up one of my emails because I can't think of a good way to put this in general terms. Oh, okay. I have a good one. This is not for an interview, but this was a little incident that I had with people that handle my paycheck. So basically, this lady from HR that I never talked to before emailed me and said that they had been overpaying me for transportation costs since I started my current job in July. And I had been anticipating that I would get an email like this eventually because they were very unorganized from the very start when it came to conversations around my transportation fee reimbursement. Okay, so long story short, the company that I'm contracted with, they said that like they asked me to fill out a form. So I filled out a form and I signed my name and everything. It's part of my contract technically. They asked me like, how much is your monthly commute pass, right? You know, you can calculate it on like Japanese train websites. So my commute would be from Chofu Station to Ginza Station, which is where technically that's the office of the client that I work at. Very, very famous high fashion luxury brand. So I gave them like, I wrote down the monthly fee, which is 18,000 yen. I think, like around $150. But then I think into like the second month of me working this job, one of my other managers at the actual client company emailed me and was like, oh, hey, you know, since you work at home mostly, and he wasn't like singling me out. He wasn't saying that, oh, I see that you only went into the office twice a week or twice a month. But he was like, hey, can you, if it makes sense, can you just charge us, or when you fill in your expense sheet, just fill in the actual days that you went into the office, right? Because in order for the commuter pass to be worth it, you have to go into the office. Like you don't have to go into an office, but in order for the commute pass to be worth it, you have to use it for your intended route at least 14 days out of the month. Because that's the point where you start to save money, as opposed to when you pay the train fare individually every single day. So I definitely don't go into the office 14 days out of the month. It's more like 4, maybe 5 on a busy month. So I think he saw that when I recorded it on my timesheet for the first month. So I only went in like 4 days, right? And it's been consistent, you know, like to be fair, I really don't ever go into the office. So he was like, oh, hey, can you just like log your individual train fare fees for the individual day, because it's, you know, it's a lot less than 18,000 yen. But the thing is that like they made me sign, as part of my contract, they made me sign off on the 18,000 yen amount for 1 month when I first joined. So HR just kept paying that 18,000 yen amount to me this whole time. But then like last month, one of the HR ladies emailed me and was like, hey, you know, I'm so sorry for this oversight, but we noticed that we've been paying you the full 18,000 yen every month ever since July, but like you actually only incurred this amount in actual transportation fees, because I had been submitting only the actual days that I went into the office, which was like very few, a lot less than 14 days per month. And she was like, yeah, so, you know, we're really sorry for this inconvenience, but basically we overpaid you like $1,000 or something. I'm just rounding. We're just hoping to work with you so that maybe we can deduct this over the course of the next 2 months. Like in order to make it easier for you, I'm going to split this amount into 2. And how about I deduct it from your next 2 paychecks, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull up the email. If this was me when I first started out, I would have probably just said yes and then not want to cause a fuss. You know, I don't want to be difficult. But I basically told her like, no, I don't agree with this. If you're emailing me to ask me if I agree with this, like if you need my permission to deduct $1,000 from my next 2 paychecks because you guys didn't double check the commutation fee situation. Because like I tried to reach out to them about it before, actually. I tried to clarify like, hey, so which style of reimbursement am I actually going to get, right? Because I filled out that form for my monthly fee, but somebody else is telling me, giving me conflicting directions to only log the actual days that I go into the office. So I just want to know like which one are we going with? And nobody really gave me a clear answer because they probably like didn't even look at it. So then I was like, all right, well, if you're not going to look at it, I'm not going to look at it, right? Like I'm not going to stop you from paying me the higher amount. But as I predicted, when they eventually realized, they tried to pull this shit with me, right? So I'm like, okay, my stance is that if you're going to do it, like, just do it. But if you're trying to get my blessing for it or my agreement, I don't agree. Like, full stop, okay? And we can just leave it at that. Okay, so here's the thing. Let me read you my email, and I want you to notice how I never used any words that can trigger. I never used words like no or but or anything that signifies that I'm trying to be combative, right? Because it's not about me being mad or like throwing a tantrum at them. That makes me look weak in the end. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, as far as the money goes, I can't stop them from, withholding or like trying to offset the amount that they overpaid me for commutation by deducting it from my future paychecks. I know that as an employee, like, I can't really stop them if they try to do that. But what I don't like is that they try to reach out to me, and like, of course, in their minds, they think that they're doing me a favor and they think they're being diplomatic about it. But like, in my mind, it's bullshit, right? Because you already paid it to me. And also, we're talking about like $1,000, okay? It's the principle of the thing for me. $1,000 for a company, that's nothing. So like, what is the point that you're trying to prove here? Why are you being so stingy and like you can't let $1,000 go because of your mistake? And like, now you're trying to take it out of my paycheck to make a point. I don't appreciate that, right? Basically, what they decided is that I told them no, I'm not okay with it. And then one of the senior managers emailed me and was like, oh my God, Ran, I'm so sorry about the confusion. You know what? I told them that we're just gonna keep deducting your future commutation fees from the amount that they overpaid, right? So originally they wanted to split the $1,000 that they claim that they overpaid for the past 6 months. They wanted to split it into two and basically deduct like 500 from, this month, March's paycheck, and then another 500 from April's paycheck. And I was like, no. So then the senior boss was like, okay, forget the lump sum deduction thing. We're just going to keep deducting like whatever individual days that you go into the office. We'll just deduct like those amounts from the total, right? So they're not going to do a lump sum deduction. And I'm like, okay, good. Well, good luck. Good luck keeping me at this company long enough for you to break even to zero on that amount. I never create a fuss at work. I didn't realize that was an option until I heard from others that they can't. Okay. So yeah, my goal is not to create a fuss or to, argue with them. If I use things like no, but this and that, it actually makes you look weak at the end of the day, especially if the outcome is something that you actually don't have control over in the first place, right? The only thing, okay, if you're an employer of an organization and they have certain terms and like they're trying to, twist or bend their rules to shortchange you, essentially, like they're doing to me in this case, you have to be very cognizant of what your actual leverage is in the situation. You do have leverage, okay? Don't get it mistaken. But when you identify and when you are honest with yourself about what your actual leverage is, then you can cut all the BS cut through all the emotional BS, because that's just going to make you look weaker in the long run. Imagine if I threw a tantrum and I told them no and I tried to argue back and forth, and then they would have to deduct the transportation fee from my check anyway. And that just makes me look weak, right? Because in the end, it's like, okay, I put up such a big fuss. I made all of this hullabaloo, but then I still didn't get what I want in the end. So that proves that I don't have power in this situation, right? Wrong. I do have power, just not in that area. I can find another job, which is what I'm doing right now. And it's not because of like the transportation system situation. It's just, I need more money in general because I have expensive taste and I want to go to Dubai 3 times a year at least. And this current paycheck is good, but it's not going to cut it in this inflation economy and this Enyasu yen down economy. But yeah, so my actual leverage is that, okay, I can get another job. I can interview like during the hours of my current job, which is what I've been doing, or I can say no. Right? If they ask me to give them my blessing, I can just say, no, I don't give you my blessing. Do what you want. Do what you will, but I'm not going to agree with it. So you're not going to get, this clean, happy ending of me agreeing to your bullshit, because I don't agree. With that being said, though, notice how I retain more of my power by not using words such as no or but, because those words make you look combative and weak. Don't use the word no. Another way that I can put it is that don't use words that suggest that you actually have authority where you don't. You know what I mean? If you say things like no or I'm not going to do this, like it sounds like a petulant child throwing a tantrum, right? And I'm not saying that even if the person on the other side is like not super affected by it. Again, these are people that stand between you and your paycheck, right? So you don't want to take any chances. Why take a chance? If you say, oh, I'm not going to do this, or no, I refuse. If you use that type of language, people can use it against you and you don't really have any control over that. They can use it to say that, oh, she's being difficult, she's not cooperative, she's a team player. If you can find a way to say the same thing and convey the same message without using the words, no, I refuse, or I'm not going to do that, it's going to be infinitely more impactful, and powerful. And it's going to bewilder. It kind of like causes a little bit of cognitive dissonance in the other person, right? Because it's like you never actually used the word no. So therefore, they can't really label you as difficult. So I'm going to tell you some things that you can say instead of no, and then I'm going to read the email. So you can say, that doesn't work for me. And this works with men too. So this works with jobs and men. And again, like basically anyone out there in the theater of social life that you're trying to, have a dialogue with to further your bigger picture goal of leveling up in society, right? I'm not talking about like when you're spending intimate time with your friends and family and whatnot. You can say that doesn't work for me, or you can say, I can't do that, right? I can't do this and that. Like if someone asks you, okay, so we used to be remote during COVID, but we are championing a new back to the office initiative. So can you come like 3 days a week to the office? You don't want to be like, no, I don't want to do that. Or like, no. When you talk to your friends, yeah, totally. Go off, queen. Hell no, I'm not doing that shit. That's how I talk to you guys all the time, right? But when you're talking to the HR person, okay, or the hiring manager of a job that you want, you never use the word no. You just say, I can't do that, okay? Or that's difficult for me to do. Or honestly, just avoid the word no, like the plague. So just say that that's difficult, I can't do it. And they might think you're being a diva. They might think you're being difficult, but it's funny to watch them because like sometimes, depending on how skilled the interviewer or the HR person is, sometimes they'll fall for the bait and they will fall right into your plan. Because basically what you're doing is you're flipping the power dynamic. Okay. If they're not experienced, they will fall for it and they'll start trying to convince you why you should do X, Y, and Z, or why their company is so great, right? And that any opportunity that you can flip the power dynamic is more leverage in your pocket. Okay. And you can do that by language alone. You don't need money or looks or a particular status. You can do it in the way that you speak. You can weaponize language, weaponize their corporate language right back in their face. This applies to not only job-related scenarios, but I'm just, I'm using jobs as an example here because it ties into what I'm doing right now in real life as well. I'm trying to interview for better and higher paying jobs. The crazy part is that I love my current job, but I just feel like, okay, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to be satisfied on this particular salary. It's not really like affording me a lot of disposable income to do all the other stuff that I want to do because I'm quite bougie, in case you haven't noticed. Like I can't just... Anyway, I need my 1,400 yen eye drops, okay? I need to buy those Lancome juicy tubes, which I all of a sudden have a craving for. So yeah, don't say no, don't say but. Instead of but, you can say however. Like, okay, if they ask you stupid questions like why do you have so many gaps in your resume, or why did you change jobs so many times, don't say like, oh, well, I'm a really good worker and I was really passionate about all those jobs, but this and that happened and that's why. Don't use the word but, okay? Because it just sounds, again, this is all subconscious, right? You just want to tip the odds in your favor as much as possible. Hence the title of this video. You're trying to gain leverage in any small way possible. Because why? All of those little instances, they add up, okay? It's like a snowball effect. Whatever chance that you get to flip the power dynamic, do it, okay? It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of like a visual. It's kind of like, okay, if you're into online games or mobile games, like let's say there's a game that there's a bunch of gold coins lined up in tiles. Sorry, I'm just coming up with this analogy on the fly, so I'm sorry if it sucks. But let's say there's a bunch of gold coins on the tiles, and then every time you flip one, it's like a star, right? And then it kind of, the coin is like ding, 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 and then it flies into your bank account. I should make this a game. I should develop this mobile app. But yeah, like think of every interaction that you walk into as a board of new gold coins, and you want to flip as many of those in your direction as possible and put it in your bank. What else can we say in that situation if they ask about gaps? You can also just like, don't act as if you're ashamed of anything, right? Because they can ask you about it, but you can be like matter of fact about it. Like, oh yeah, so yeah, it's because of this and that. And then, COVID happened. So I decided that I needed a change, and just be like matter of fact. Don't talk about it as if it's something shameful, because it's not. Why would you be ashamed of your life story and what you had to do to get here? Ask them about their gaps and their dips in revenue. But yeah, okay, so don't use the word but. You can say however, you can say alternatively. Let me read you the email that they sent me about my overpaid commutation fee. So they're like, hi, it's come to our attention that you've been submitting your commuting allowance expenses whilst being paid a fixed value within your payroll every month as an allowance. We calculated how much you've been paid in total and how much you should have been paid. And the result is that you have been overpaid for 120,000 Japanese yen. So like $1,000, right? Blah, 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 blah. So we sincerely apologize for the lack of communication and understand that you might not have checked your pay slips closely, unable to identify that you are already being overpaid the commuting allowance. But since we have to regularize this overpayment, we want to ensure that we reach the best deduction plan for you. Would you agree to deducting the mentioned value in 2 installments? See the plan below. So she like split the difference into 2 for deduction from my March and April payroll. So then I reply, I'm not actually upset at all, right? Because like it is what it is. Do I agree with it? No. Do I find it like annoying and ridiculous? Yeah. But like I'm not going to expend energy on something that I can't change, right? And this is the whole reason why I'm interviewing for more jobs at the moment. Like I said, I don't even feel like moving. I feel very comfortable in this job, and it's honestly any girl in this city would die to have my job. Everyone's dying to be us, Andrea. But yeah, the pay is just something that I'm like, okay, it's getting to the point where, I mean, I wouldn't even be able to afford a classic item from this brand until like a year into working for this company. That is enough to make me consider greener pastures, salary-wise at least. But we'll see how it plays out. But anyway, so I respond, dear such and such, at the beginning of my contract, I was asked to fill out the monthly commute pass fee in my form, which is 18,000 Japanese yen. And later on, I was instructed by so-and-so to record my individual expenses per day. However, not but, okay. However, since it states in your company policy that up until 30,000 yen is allocated per month, I understood that there was no issue with the 18,000 yen continuing to be paid to me in full each month. To be honest, I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea that I would need to pay back any amount. So I'm not being combative. I'm not saying I'm not going to do this. You know, that makes you look weak. That makes you look like a toddler having a tantrum. I just say I'm not comfortable. When in doubt, turn the language towards how you feel, because that also conveys a sense of like you're taking responsibility. Even if you're saying something that makes things difficult for them or makes you look like a diva, it doesn't matter, because that's how powerful your actual choice of words is. Okay. There are certain things that they will never be able to say to you in response if you choose your words correctly. Use your words as a weapon. So I say that I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea that I would need to pay back any amount, as the money has already been used for its intended purpose, i.e. living expenses, etc., which is true. It would be difficult for me to deal with that large of a deduction from my next 2 paychecks so suddenly. Full stop. That's it. It would be difficult for me to deal with that. AKA hell to the fucking no. But you're going to do what you're going to do, right? So do whatever you're going to do. This is my way of saying, like, I don't give a fuck, and I'm not giving you my blessing. So whatever you want to do with that response, I don't care. I'm done with this conversation. I'm not going to discuss this anymore. I said my piece, right? I said, I'm not comfortable with this. I understood that this was the case, but now you're telling me B. So that means you're being inconsistent and disorganized here. Not my problem. I understood this. If I'm wrong, you should have no problem telling me that I'm wrong, but I'm not. That's why you have no response. I'm not comfortable with the idea of deducting however much from my next 2 paychecks, and it would be difficult for me to deal with this, AKA no, I don't agree to this plan. I said so much without saying anything that makes me look combative, right? And I still, you know, it's kind of bitchy. The tone is bitchy, but that was intentional.
This video was actually recorded a little bit earlier. It is now May of 2026. So update, and you could say this is a victory for me. I noticed that in my March paycheck, they actually didn't deduct anything, even though I sent them the report of, you know, the 4 or 5 days that I went in that totaled to about 5,000 yen in transportation fees. But then I noticed that my last month's paycheck, April, they actually stopped deducting the commutation fee. Instead, they actually paid it, like whatever the total number of days I worked in the office in April, they paid me that 5,000 yen, as you normally would. So I wonder what caused their change of heart. Could it be that I never gave them my explicit consent? I never agreed with their plan for me to pay back the $1,000 that they supposedly overpaid me for the past year in commutation fees. So actually an important little detail is that after the big boss, you know, HR manager stepped in and told me that instead of making me pay a lump sum. They would just deduct my monthly commutation totals moving forward, like very slowly at a slow pace from the $1,000 overpaid amount. I actually never replied to that email either. So I deaded the conversation, right? Because as far as I was concerned, my piece was already said. So I have a feeling that the reason they ended up not being able to deduct anything from my further paychecks, because even in March, right, they said they were going to deduct from the $1,000, but they ended up just putting 0 in the commutation fee category. So I have a feeling that legally they couldn't technically claim back, wages that they already paid me. That's essentially what it was. So because I play chess and not checkers, because I never gave them permission, even though they were so crafty about trying to get it from me, right? They never outright told me that, hey, we need your agreeance, but it doesn't matter because I'm still 10 steps ahead. So I think it was because of that. Maybe also a dash of like putting some respect on my name, recognizing that I am not one to be played with or fall for the okie doke. So yeah, I'm glad they got the hint. I'm glad they came to their senses before I had to do something drastic, like look for a new job with a completely new company.
When you're out in the world, in the theater of social life, okay, I want you to be able to control every single word that comes out of your mouth. I want you to be in full control. I don't ever want you to have to look back and think, oh God, I shouldn't have said that, or like, why did I do that? Why did I have an emotional outburst? And of course, we're not expecting 100% accuracy or 100% hit rate here. We're all still human, but this is why it's so important to regulate your own nervous system and do your own inner work and healing. Okay, because the more healed that you are, the more that you are not going to be affected by other people's BS, and you're not going to be triggered. There's always going to be deeper layers of healing and certain triggers that maybe you haven't even addressed before or been aware of that unexpectedly may come up in certain situations. But you just gotta, once you get into, the lifestyle of leveling up, not only like your physical circumstances, but your mental, first and foremost, it's going to get easier and easier. And you shouldn't be putting any emotional stock in these people anyway. That's the point that I want to make. So therefore, don't talk to them as if they're stirring up any emotion in you, because they're not. Okay, it's strictly business. Just keep it strictly business. Maybe this is like a very Japanese way as well of dealing with things, you could say, because they don't like to say no or anything directly. Here in Japan, they have like 5,000 different ways of saying no. Some of it include okay, but it's a word that, if you say kekko desu, then it means no in a lot of situations. So yeah, avoid words that other people can use against you or against your reputation in the future. If you flat out say no, or I'm not going to do that, things like that, people can use that as ammunition against you. I literally just got a pen mark on my chair, but it's okay because this chair is broken and I need to throw it away at some point anyway. Yeah, don't give people any ammunition towards you, if that makes sense. They could still, they could talk bad about you. They can complain as much as you want if you used any of these alternative phrases, but they're not going to be able to disrespect you. You know what I mean? They're not going to be able to paint you as someone who is immature or uncooperative, or even if they say you're uncooperative, they're not going to be able to say that you were rude or anything like that. You keep your language very diplomatic, okay, very HR coded, and it will bring you a lot of leverage in just your word choice alone. So I hope that was helpful. Trying to think if there's any other things that I want to add. What's another phrase that you should avoid? So yeah, avoid direct questions, avoid interrogating someone at a dinner or whatever, someplace where they're trying to chill. Don't make it into an interview. Don't do this on dates either. I can't stand it when people try to turn dates into interviews. And if somebody does it to you, if you feel like they're being invasive, then just pretend like you're selectively deaf, or just answer one thing, answer a small piece of what they're asking, whatever you're comfortable with answering, give them that small nugget, and then just continue to just steer the conversation away from that. So if they're oh, so what brings you here, or what field do you work in, you just say something vague oh yeah, I'm in IT, but yeah, AI. I mean, have you been following the news? I saw this TikTok the other day of a robot cooking this girl pasta. Just go off on a tangent. Yeah. Go off on a tangent or get distracted. So this is the great thing about going to events, right? There are actual physical things in the room that you can get distracted. You'd be oh, hey, oh, sorry, I saw my friend over there. I'm going to go say hi. It was nice talking to you. Or if the hors d'oeuvre boy slash girl, waiter, waitress comes by, you can be like, ooh, oh my God, I love this. Wow, I haven't had this type of a soggy finger sandwich in so long. Oh my God, it's so good. Keep the tension high and just like act overly excited about something else, and then usually that will disarm the person. Or you could just excuse yourself to go to the bathroom. Like don't feel obligated. You are not obligated to answer questions or prove yourself to anybody that you just met or that you don't feel like engaging in a deeper conversation with. Don't say no, don't say but. Oh yeah, and don't like, it's kind of in the same vein, but don't disagree with people flat out, right? Like don't actively get involved in a debate about something, even if somebody says something completely out of pocket or like a really, really controversial opinion. You are not there to be a political activist, okay? You're not there to be a social justice warrior. Remember your goal, okay? You're there to expand your social circle. You're there to try and find your next opportunity. You're there to, improve your lot in life somehow. You are not, there's a time and place, right? So if you're like me, for example, you have your own platform on social media, talk about things that you're passionate about over there. That is not something that random strangers at any given event deserve from you, however high net worth or whatever that they may be. Like that's not the point of that event. The point of that event is to gain more social capital, or however you want to put it, for yourself. It's to gain more connections, right? It's to make a good impression. You want to be a presence that's positive, that people are intrigued by, whether it's, your physical presentation, like your outfit, the way that you do your hair and your makeup and everything, that makes people kind of turn their heads like, oh, who is that? She's so put together. She looks like she's new around here. A combination of that and like your conversational skills. You want to bring like an easygoing, chill vibe, don't get combative with someone for no reason. Just if you really feel like that person said something so heinous that you can't ignore it, then just don't interact with that person anymore, right? Like make an excuse to get away from them and go strike up a conversation with someone else that is probably more aligned with your views. Don't campaign on behalf of a cause that you're not even being paid to do at an event that is supposed to benefit you. Okay, so exploit the manipulative possibilities of language to your benefit, because they be doing it to you every single day since you were born. Okay, it's called propaganda, media, etc. So just use the same tactics. Go out there and use the same tactics on everyone else. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm like checking off the things that I covered. Okay, I'm trying to think of another word because I'm sure there's other phrases that are just not coming to me right now. So yeah, don't ask questions. Don't ask people why or how or pry into their life. It makes you look desperate too, right? Like, why are you so thirsty or desperate to know about their situation? You must be, or you must have never gone anywhere nice. That's what people will be thinking about you more than likely if you interrogate people as if they're on an interview. Don't say but, don't say no. Always substitute it with a phrase of why it's difficult for you or why it just doesn't work for you. Like, oh, would you be open to go to the office 3 days a week now? Oh, I concentrate better when I'm at home. I can't do that. I have a cat that has special needs, so we can never be ourselves at work. It's not about not being yourself. Okay. My definition of being myself, being my highest self, is that I act in a way that benefits me at all times, right? Or at the very least, it doesn't hurt me or disadvantage me in public, okay? This is part of what you have to do in public in order to not disadvantage yourself and also to like set yourself apart. Okay, if you want to just be like a regular person, you're like, I'm fine in the job, in the position that I'm in. I'm fine to date guys that are within my same tax bracket, whatever. That's totally fine. But I'm just saying, if you have more ambitions in life, if you're trying to see how far up the ladder you can go, if you're trying to create more stability for yourself, ultimately in this life, then yeah, you do have to play these reindeer games in public. But my point is, you shouldn't take it as like a personal thing. See, this is not something that you need to feel bad about. It's just strategy at the end of the day. Acting is a full-time job, even in technical fields. Yeah. Is it acting or is it just strategy? Are you just a master chess player that knows how to use everything to your advantage? This is alchemy. This is spiritual warfare, if you want to call it that. This is energetic chess. I wanted to call attention to something that I feel like it stares us right in the face, and it's so easy for you to start exercising this in your daily life, especially if you feel like you're someone that doesn't have a lot of resources to begin with, like you didn't have a leg up from your parents or anything like that. Even if you're right now stuck in a minimum wage job, right? And you're just trying to get to the next level. Like, I just want an office job, somewhere where I can relax and sit at a desk and do computer work instead of like hard labor or something. If you work in the service industry and you're trying to transition into a desk job, like, you don't have to have extra money or anything in order to achieve that. You can go very far just by controlling your words better and choosing your words better. So it's like the hypothetical mobile game that I was talking to you about. If, let's say, you have like a chessboard, imagine like my shirt. Oh my God, this is so fitting. It was meant to be. But imagine like a chessboard, but it's like flat. Okay. So it's like a flat chessboard, and then you have, a bunch of coins, one coin on each square. And then your goal is to flip them over. If you can flip over 51 out of 100 coins, then let's say you win the game. All you need is 51% to like tip the scales in your favor. So why would you not take every single opportunity that you have, right? And a lot of girls, I feel like a lot of girls overly focus on the physical level up aspect of social climbing, or just level up in general. No, language is very, very powerful. Just by training yourself to use certain words in place of things like but or no, or I'm not going to do that, I refuse to do that. Just by making it second nature to, how do I say this? Yeah, substitute with more subtle but firm ways of conveying the same idea, but in a way that like keeps your reputation intact, in a way that prevents people from being able to say certain things about you, right? Although they might feel it and they might want to accuse you of it, they cannot say it. If you never said the word no, if you never said, I refuse to do XYZ, then they're going to look crazy if they accuse you of being difficult or having too high standards, etc., right? So again, that's a win for you. Even if you don't get that particular job, or even if that particular individual doesn't become an instrumental part of your network, you're not going to walk away from the interaction in any sort of one down position. You're still going to maintain like your goddess status. I hope this is making sense. It takes practice though. So get out there, practice. And like I said, if you trip up or you feel like, okay, I'm in over my head, you can always default to silence. Always default to less is more. Get your mysterious girl aura on. Just go grab a drink and sip it, or just like, nod. And you have to also master the act of acting really interested in what other people have to say, right? Because if that person has what you want, or that person stands between you and what you want, then in a way you are interested in what they're saying. Even if it's like something in the moment, maybe it's a topic that you would rather be listening to a lecture on how bees pollinate than listening to that person, talk about whatever random niche subject that they decide to bring up in the moment. Just think of it like, always bring it back to, how is this going to benefit me in the end? You can practice your acting skills, okay? Practice your emoting skills, like practice your expressions in the mirror before you go outside. Like, wow, that's so interesting. Like sometimes, okay, I feel like maybe this is just an issue for girls that have resting bitch face. I don't know if I necessarily have RBF. I mean, this is the thing. I'm very conscious of how I look, even when I'm resting in public. Okay, so I train myself to where I don't have RBF in public. I do this thing where I just look like neutral, like, And nowadays, I feel like I hit the mark. But I remember when I first started to really go all in on my level up, there were times when I would think that like, if I'm just, there's no mirrors around, and let's say I'm sitting on a bus or whatever, in my mind, I feel like, okay, I'm slightly smiling, right? Maybe I'm listening to a song that I like, and I'm like, okay, I'm listening to it like this. And I don't have a mirror in front of me. I can't see my reflection. So I feel like, okay, I'm smiling. The muscles in my face are congruent to the muscles that I use when I smile or laugh about something. But then I'll catch a glimpse of myself in the bus window or something, and it's like, actually I have a neutral face on, right? So I thought I was smiling, but my face is neutral. So I'm like, oh shit, but I want my face to match what I'm actually feeling inside. So I overly smile a little bit. And it feels weird at first because I'm like, okay, do I look like a weirdo? But then my actual face though, like the actual expression reads as a slight smile, but it feels like a bigger smile to me because I feel like I'm using more muscles. So it depends on your face, right? Because like some people, maybe another person has the opposite problem with me. Like they think that they have a neutral face on, but they just naturally have a very smiley face. So like maybe their features are just like upturned in some way. So you have to get intimately familiar with yourself and your face, your expressions, everything. Okay. Because you want to have control of as many aspects of your communication as possible when you're in public. There are certain things that you obviously can't control, like certain features that you were born with. You can't control whether you were born a woman or a man, or I mean, well, technically, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You can't control your age or like your body type. You can do the best that you can to be in the best shape of your life. But if you were not meant to be like a size 0 or something, then you can't control that you're not a size 0, right? And it's not to say that you don't have to be a size 0 in order to gain leverage or gain favor in this world. But everything that you can control, though, it is in your best interest to practice at it. Aim for 100% control. Okay, so that includes your appearance, your outfits, grooming, hair, makeup, nails, dressing for the occasion, right? You're not going to wear the same thing to a golfing event that you wear to a charity gala, of course. Your expressions. If you know that you have RBF, or you're the kind of person that your emotions don't really transfer through that easily on your face, then practice that in the mirror, okay? It's going to feel like you're overdoing it at first. You have to be willing to work through the cringe phase until it just becomes like second nature. Yes, appearance, outfit, speech, and non-reactivity, okay? So it's not to say that you can't be human. We're all human. You can't control everything. Like there are certain circumstances where you might be upset or you might feel out of your element in a certain event. But it's very important that you keep your cool and you look like you know what you're doing on the outside. Also, okay, this is another subtle tip. There's so many things that I can get into, but when you walk into a new establishment, and if it's something that, like, let's say you go to an event and it's held in this super nice hotel or super nice restaurant, and you're not used to being in those types of spaces, right? Or even if you go luxury shopping for the first time, you never walked into a Chanel or an Hermes store before. I'm sure we can all relate to the feeling of like our heart beating and wondering if the sales associate is judging you. Okay, you need to cut that shit out. So first of all, walk into any building, any place that you plan to go to with confidence, not arrogance, but just like you're going about your business, okay? The same way that you walk to the grocery store to go pick up cheese, eggs, bacon, whatever, that's the same way that you're going to walk into a hotel, right? And don't look around too much, which sounds kind of sad. Like, okay, I'm a person that I appreciate the small things in life, and I think it's really important to hold on to that sense of wonder that you had as a child. I refuse to give that up. So the smallest thing, I will find a way to enjoy it, have fun, and but if you are on a mission, though, to achieve a certain goal, right? Like, for example, if you're going to an event at a fancy venue, you want to keep that mission at the forefront. Okay, so this is not the time for you to like be looking around wide-eyed and taking pictures of your steak or whatever. If nobody else at the function is taking pictures of their dinner, then don't be that person that like pulls out your phone and takes a picture. That's corny, and it looks like you have never been anywhere nice before, right? Even if you haven't. And I'm not saying that, again, as a woman, we have more leeway. I feel like people in general, not just men, but everyone is they like to see women's faces light up. People in general, we like to see women enjoying themselves and having fun and like not being jaded, right? So I'm not telling you to be jaded, but you have to cultivate an air of, I'm used to this kind of thing. Okay, I'm having a good time. I love this wine. Oh my goodness, it's just like rolling off my tongue. But it's not like, this is the first time I've ever had wine, or oh my God, this is the first time that I've ever had to deal with like 3 sets of silverware. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to look like a deer in headlights. And this is especially if you go alone somewhere. Like, don't be looking around as if you're desperate and like waiting for some man to approach you. Okay, go in there confident. You're just going about your business. Go order yourself a drink or whatever, and don't hesitate. I'll tell you a short story. So like when I went to Dubai in January, and I met that guy who took me around to go see the tigers and whatnot, and he gave me a key to his apartment in downtown, right? I still have the key. Not sure if I want to use it at all anymore because he was being stupid last time I talked to him. But I have the key to like his apartment, and there was I think the day before I left, because I had to leave at 2 a.m. or something for the airport. But that evening he was away on business, and then he had brought my suitcase and everything to his apartment because I didn't book an extra night at the hotel. So he was like, you can just chill here and then I'll bring you to the airport until 2 a.m. So like he was gone for business the entire day. I had lunch with a friend, and I went back to his apartment in order to do my laundry and do some packing and whatnot, right? So then he gave me the key. He was like, don't stop when you walk through the entrance. Like, don't stop or hesitate at the lobby because it's a nice place with a reception area and everything. It's kind of set up like a hotel weirdly, but he was like, just go in and then go to the elevators on the right side. So like, don't go to the left, because apparently there's, I think half of it was a hotel and half of it was apartment suites. Anyway, so yeah, I just like walked in and didn't make eye contact with anyone, but I walked with purpose and I walked as if I live here, right? And nobody stopped me. That's what you have to do whenever you go to a new place or a new type of venue that you're not used to. Just act calm, cool, and collected. You can geek out about it later by yourself to your bestie, okay? About all the amazing new foods that you tried or the billionaires that you met. But when you're there, you're on a mission. You have an acting role to fulfill. You can have fun, but you know, you are your own representative, okay? So don't sell yourself short, is what I'm trying to say.